Hello there, welcome. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope this video finds you well, healthy. If for whatever reason that's not the case, then stick around. We'll make it better. Promise. All right, we are delving into a letter from Nichiren to Niike. And it's been profound in that Nichiren is focused on the building blocks of practice here. And as is often the case, he makes his arguments and his insights in lieu of the existing propaganda and forces of his day, those being of other schools of thought that take on the moniker of Buddhism, but they don't follow the scholarship of Buddhism. They introduce their own interpretations against Shakyamuni's obvious teachings for their own egos, their own political gain, their own power, their own advantages, whatever they perceive them to be. And as usual, when you're dealing with masses of people and singular or small hierarchical structures, they tend to be very self-serving rather than, as Buddhism is, a very individual practice, completely gauged, if you will, by your own effort. Nobody can tell you you're not your practice is ineffectual. You know that. You know that. You are your teacher. You are your critic. You are the one responsible for your Buddha. No one can hand you Buddha. Nobody can take it from you. It's yours. Buddhist practice is about awakening to the fact that that Buddha has been there all along. That it's a life condition, a perceptive mind, that nobody can hand you perceptive. People can help you attain insights. That's the benefit of Sangha. That's the benefit of what you and I are doing right now. Through our conversations about the nature of awakening this Buddha nature, through our own specific little lenses, I don't mean little as trivial, I mean minute differences that are quite consequential in the way that we experience the world, our lives in the world. We have certain amounts of, I call it kinetic energy. You might say, well, it's baggage from the past. It's I've heard terms in movies where they say, well, I'm playing an old tape, and like it's an old video. And from that old video, I'm making certain assumptions, which are, obviously invalid because they're based on a tape that's invalid, and so on and so forth. These are different ways of talking about self-programming, self-training, right? Even if other people's barrage us, like brainwashing, and put ideas in our heads from childhood, right? And make us think magically and mystically and so forth. And they make us listen to this, and they make us follow rules based on those things. Ultimately, we choose to follow those things. You can't really say somebody makes you do something without your having been involved in making a choice. Now, I understand some people and cultures can be extremely forceful, especially when we're vulnerable and we're tiny humans, right? It takes so many years to raise a human mind to a level where it's a critical thinking, independent mind, right? You could argue that nobody has a critical thinking, completely independent mind. Certainly as Buddhists, our desire to awaken our Buddha mind is that. You could, I think, without fear of contradiction, actually say, in a secular sense, that our practice of Buddhism is about enlivening, giving oxygen to, giving predominance to our unadulterated, clear thinking, critical thinking, absolutely unadulterated, uninfluenced mind. I certainly wouldn't have a problem saying it in those words. That is Buddha. Buddha is unfettered by these attachments and desires, and not that we want to exterminate that, because that's human life, that's samsara. We have all those delusions and desires, but if you could perceive the world and the way of things without, while observing all of those passions and desires and likes, dislikes, programming, so on and so forth, as something uninfluential, as something that's kind of like the color of your shoes. To be Buddha is not to not have colorful shoes. It's simply that the color of the shoes don't matter. They're just, in fact, they're kind of entertaining. Oh, look. Interesting. He's wearing yellow shoes. She's wearing brown shoes. I, quote, have a beard. But that's not my Buddha that has a beard. That's my samsaric I, ego, self. And as I'm talking to you and reading and studying with you, I'm exploring my Buddha mind, the insights, my Gohonzon mind, the insights of Buddha within my samsaric experience. Isn't that fascinating? Does it influence me? No, it liberates the excitement of my Buddha. Right? So, let's continue. Nichiren is talking along these lines, these very big, broad strokes about how you can practice Buddhism fake or with dedication. And this is critical. This is the critical point Nichiren is trying to drive home here. You can be a great scholar of Buddhism, just like you can be a great scholar of rebuilding engines in cars or in diesel trucks or motors in electric vehicles, right? You can become an electrical engineer, right? But that is not practicing Buddhism. That is just learning and becoming quite adept at the teachings of Buddhism. Just because you say Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, if you say it as empty words, without conviction, without the knowledge and the insights and all of the years that you put into your sincere wanting to open up within your life experience that clear Buddha perception of life, that knowing, that alternate state of being, of perception, then when you say Myoho Renge Kyo, you feel the determination, you feel the invocation, right? You can say mother all day long and talk about mothers and what is a mother and what does mother mean. But when you're in that shocked moment of desolation and about to lose your life and you go, Mother, you have a different sense of what it is to utter that word, mother. Because the answer is not in the word, it's in the meaning of the words. Shakyamuni was very specific, admonished some monks that kept asking him the same question 80 different ways, actually. I think it's the Lakavatara. He goes through this with somebody, and he finally gets fed up. He says, all you're doing is manipulating words. Stop spending all your time defining and figuring out the words and look for the meaning. So yeah, and people hear us chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo and they go, oh, magic words. No, you don't understand. We're not merely chanting words. We're chanting entire concepts. Concepts which continually grow in our lives as we study, because our nature of our study is to explore the immensity of these concepts. So they stopped being words to us long ago. They're sounds, and they're sounds that equivocate our insights of Buddha-ness. Very hard to explain to somebody who hasn't hunkered down and tried to do this. That's why when we tell other people about Buddhism, this Buddhism, the way to practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism, we always try to entreat them into experiencing it. You know, how long do you take a class in school? Well, that's 3 months, 4 months out of your life, and you don't even know if you'll ever like it or do it again. So try it. Give this practice a really collegiate try, morning and evening. Come over to my house. Do it on your own. Chant, recite Gongyo. Give it 3 or 4 months and see how you feel by the end of that semester of study. Chances are really good, if you give it a sincere try, that you're going to see the value in this, right? So this is what Nichiren is talking about here. There are people in his day that just practice a little bit of everything so they can just feel a part of society, but they're not sincere. They're not delving into something with determination, with their heart and mind. So here we go. How swiftly the days pass. It makes us realize how few are the years we have left. Friends enjoy the cherry blossoms together on spring mornings, and then they're gone, carried away like the blossoms by the winds of impermanence, leaving nothing but their names. These are very profound thoughts. Again, big, broad strokes, right? The way you might see blossoms wherever you are in the world of a certain tree or shrub, and it enlightens you at a certain time of the year. When it happens, you go, wow, that's so beautiful, and you pause, and maybe you watch the bees or the hummingbirds feed on the nectar of those flowers or those blossoms, or maybe they're fruits that you particularly love. But it only lasts for a little while. The next thing you know, you look out there and they're just either barren branches or branches full of leaves, but no blossoms. And it's done. You won't see it again for another year. It's kind of a feeling of loss there. But we get accustomed to it, right? It's just the nature of things. All things are impermanent. All things are constant. We arise, we stick around, decay, and go away. That's the nature of all samsara, all things, right? This is why we know as Buddhists that our lives come into being. We express and experience for a while as we slowly decay, and I know that because I'm in my mid-60s now, and I know the decay, and then I'll no longer be a blossom. I won't be here, right? Although the blossoms have scattered, the cherry trees will bloom again with the coming of spring. But when will those people be reborn? Now that's a rhetorical question because, of course, those people will never be reborn. There is no bag of Chuck or bag. My mind went all over the place. Or bag of Mary or Betty or John, right? That's a mystical, magical kind of thought. That we go to some gate and enter some other realm. Come on. The companions with whom we enjoyed composing poems praising the moon on autumn evenings have vanished with the moon behind the shifting clouds. They're gone. Only their mute images remain in our hearts. And this is what I'm always reminding people, that when somebody passes away, their memories are a part of our life experience, moment to moment to moment, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. So we've become expert at transmitting those memories from one moment to the next. So we hang on to them as they slowly have their own life. They decay until we may not even remember the name of a deceased friend. With enough time, it happens. And maybe that makes us sad, but it's kind of ridiculous to be sad about that, isn't it? Because that is the way of things. So if you have a memory, I have memories of my deceased sister. They get lesser and lesser every decade. But when I have one, I savor it for a moment. I remember what joy I was able to experience with her. I don't dwell on things that weren't joyful, like her passing away, for instance, other than to think of how much I appreciate having had her experience and affect on my experience in my life. In that way, Diane is still a little bit with me. But that's not her living her life again or beyond the grave. That's her life as it imparted gifts of experience on me, living on beyond her death. That's mine. That's my experience of Diane, not her. But it can be a very romantic, enticing thing, especially if you have magical thinking, to think, I still talk to her, I still have her with me. Calm down. Yes, she's still with you. Your experience of her, still with you. Wonderful. Savor that. But don't imagine it is something that it is not. It is not other. And if there's one primary thing in our Buddhist practice that we know to be absolutely true, is that there is no other. There is no other. In fact, to get a little bit radical here, if you really get, and as your Buddha perception will realize, that there's really no separation between you and I. This idea of other is a samsaric convention. In bodies we are many. In mind we are one. Itai Doshin. Really think about what that means when you study Itai Doshin. Many in body, one in mind. When we chant together, we are many in body, one in mind. The body, the thingness, as the samsaric. The mind isn't in this body. The mind is produced by the amazing mechanisms of this body. And it has a symbiotic relationship with this body, which is why we can experience Buddhahood in this form. But this body is a provisional thing in order to instantiate, manifest, experience mind. And when this body fails and dies and no longer continues to be a living organism, that mind also ceases. But in a very real way, the mind, the Buddha mind that we all share, never ceases until all life and time cease. This is why Buddha is timeless, not eternal. Timeless. We'll go into that. Maybe I'll do a whole new video on that because it's a fascinating subject. Only their mute images remain in our hearts. Though the moon has set behind the western mountains, we will compose poetry under it again next autumn. Because it hasn't gone away. It's just a perceptive change. But where are our companions who have passed away? Same rhetorical question. Even when the approaching tiger of death roars, we do not hear and are not startled. How many more days are left to the sheep bound for slaughter? So these are all analogies around this overwrought fear of death and another place. There is no other place. There is no returning body cyclically going through this life. There is this, Nichiren is making it painfully clear how precious each moment of this life is. Don't dilly-dally. Don't play around with stuff that is already proven by Shakyamuni himself to be idle entertainment and against your own Buddha nature, because it strays you. It takes you away from your focus. It plays with your desires and your emotions, and that's samsaric. That's not enlightenment. Deep in the snow mountains lived the bird called the cold-suffering bird that, tortured by the numbing cold, cries that it will build a nest in the morning. Yet, when day breaks, it sleeps away the hours in the warm light of the morning sun without building its nest. So it continues to cry vainly throughout its life. The same is true of the human beings. When they fall into hell and gasp in its flames, they long to be reborn as humans and vow to put everything else aside and serve the three treasures in order to gain enlightenment in their next life. But even on the rare occasion when they happen to be reborn in human form, in the winds of fame and profit blow violently, and the lamp of Buddhist practice is easily extinguished. Without a qualm, they squander their wealth on meaningless trifles, but begrudge even the smallest contribution to the Buddha, the law, and the Buddhist order. This is very serious, for then they are being hindered by messengers from hell. This is the meaning of, quote, good by the inch and evil by the foot, end quote. So there it is, human laziness. This Buddhist thing sounds like a really great thing. It's like that Snoopy cartoon. I'll start acting more sensible tomorrow, right? We always put it off, until we've lived the whole life of putting it off, and then it's too late. Then when we finally get old enough to think, man, I've been dilly-dallying away my entire life. Everything that I thought was important turned out to just be another play, another stupidity on my own, something that didn't ultimately bring me any great satisfaction. It was just temporary. But now here I am, miserable again. Maybe I should take this thing seriously and do it. Well, yeah, you can. But look at all the time that you've spent, wasted, and making causes that are going to make it harder for you now to really plunge meaningfully into your Buddha nature. Stop fooling around. Get serious. Do it. It doesn't take much time. You just need to get serious. Allot some time for it. It will make time for you. Furthermore, since this country is a land whose people slander the correct teaching, the benevolent deities who should be protecting the nation have been deprived of the flavor of the law and have ascended to heaven, forsaking their shrines. In other words, we have our own karmic aura. You know, I keep speaking about how we have this influential power of our energy, right? Our kinetic momentum, our life moving forward. Dun, 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 dun. And there's like picture waves, you know, like when a boat goes through the water, it pushes water up around it, so it affects everything around it as it moves. So ask yourself what your effects are going to be like. Well, of what value are those effects? If they're all based on mundane greed, avarice, pleasure, transient, samsaric things, you're just building more resistance in this water to your enlightenment, to your awakening. Those are the kinds of irradiation you want to have, right? And the environment around you supports what you put into it. So if everything you put into it is about desire, gain, power, avarice, whatever, then eventually that becomes your world. But if you push into your world this glorious amazement with life, what you start to draw toward you is of a completely different nature. Right? Makes sense? The empty shrines have been occupied by demons who are misleading the worshippers. In other words, these forces, these cosmic energies that are not nurturing, that are not supportive of your true self, your perceptive self. You simply become surrounded, as I said before, with validation for your desires. It's kind of a closed loop. The Buddha, having finished preaching, has returned to the land of tranquil light. The Buddha's always there. But if you don't awaken it, if you don't fuse with Buddha, if you're not determined to be at one with Buddha-ness, then Buddha still remains. It just stops paying attention to you. Your direct connection with invocation of Buddha becomes more mired in your samsaric delusions. It doesn't become as available to you until you start to chant Daimoku again, but chanting with determination, not just chanting and going, "Where are you? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo," right? Don't play games. May seem like a fun cartoon to draw, but it will bring you exactly what you're asking of it. Just toyful play. You got to get sincere. The Buddha, having finished preaching, has returned to the land of tranquil light. Halls and padetas and temples, shrines have been abandoned to become the dwellings of devils. These imposing structures stand in rows, built at state expense, and though compulsory labor imposed on the people. This is not merely my own opinion. It is found in the sutras, so you should study them well, right? If you hire a bunch of slaves to build a stupa to honor the Buddha because it'll make you look good for the people that you may control or govern, you're not really. It's become a device. That's not Buddhism. That's a lie. But if you're sincere and you yourself expend of your own effort to create an altar, a place of reverence for your Buddha mind to instantiate, to awaken, no matter how humble that place is, the power that it has is immense. Right? Attitude and intent. Where are we time-wise? Neither Buddhas nor deities would ever accept contributions from those who slander the correct teaching. Then how can we human beings accept them? The deity of Kasuga Shrine proclaimed through an oracle that he would accept nothing from those with impure hearts, though he should have to eat the flames of burning copper, that he would refuse to set a foot in their homes, though he should have to sit down on red-hot copper. He would rather come down to a miserable hut with weeds choking the passageway, or to a poor thatched house. He declared that he would never visit persons lacking in resolve, even if they hung sacred festoons for 1,000 days to welcome him, but that he would go to a house where the people have a mind of resolution, even though they might be in mourning for a parent, lamenting that slanderers had overturned this country. The benevolent deities have abandoned it and ascended to heaven. Those with impure hearts, quote unquote, means those who refuse to embrace the Lotus Sutra, as is stated in the 5th volume of the sutra itself. If the deities themselves regard alms from slanderers as more abominable than the flames of burning copper, how could we human beings possibly accept them? If someone were to kill our parents and then try to offer us some gift, could we possibly accept it? Not even wise persons or sages can avoid the hell of incessant suffering if they accept offerings from slanderers. Nor should you associate with slanderers, or if you do, you will share the same guilt as they. This you should fear above all. So guard yourself against those around you, your influences. Take stock of your influences. Everything in your environment is an influence. And if it's influencing you to be lazy, to be callous, to walk away from your Buddha nature, then that's an influence you don't need in your life. You need to put that away. Work around it. Leave it alone. If you focus on your practice, new friends will come into your life. New influences will come into your life. And they will support aspects of you that you may not even need or know that needed support. You may discover new things about yourself. That's the nature of actual proof. That's the nature of awakening your Buddha mind. You become a person that is at your maximal potential of the energy from which you're manifest. And you, as omnipotent as you are, don't know all of those nooks and crannies of capacity. What you do know are the ones you habitually inhabit. And sometimes those are the worst ones. Worst in that they keep you from realizing your maximal potential. But if it's all you know, that's what you keep spending your energy on. This is why we chant, to clear that up, to move that on. That's called busting karma. It's one thing that's called busting karma. Shakyamuni Buddha is the father, sovereign, and teacher of all other Buddhas, our Buddhas, and all the deities of the whole assembly of the human and heavenly beings and of all living beings. How could the heavenly deities and the benevolent deities rejoice if the Buddha were killed? Today, all the people of our country have proved to be enemies of Shakyamuni Buddha. I think that's pretty safe to say today. But more than laymen or laywomen, it is the priests with the perverse wisdom and hearts who are the Buddha's worst enemies. It's the teachers. The teachers themselves are the worst enemies of Shakyamuni Buddha because they've all appropriated his teachings for their own gains. Holding Nichiren mandalas up like carrots for you to, here, you can have it if you're good. You can have it if you can do this. Oh, wait, you're doing it wrong. Give it back. These people, they don't even read their own dialogue. Nichiren says so often. The Gohonzon is not outside yourself. Gohonzon is something you own intrinsically. It's your gateway to Buddha-ness. This mandala Nichiren created for all of us. There's no test for it. And certainly doesn't have anybody else's signatures on it that says that they are the authority. Nichiren is the authority. Shakyamuni is the authority. But Nichiren is the authority of this mandala. He created it. No one else. It shouldn't have other dates, auspicious dates, and other monks' names on it, because they're the ones who then inherited, what, Nichiren's juice? What the hell is that? That's not Buddhism. We practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism. And Nichiren gave us a tool by his hand that all of us could use as a mirror of our inner Gohonzon. That's why this mandala is an exact digital copy of one of Nichiren's own inscribed Gohonzon. Nobody else's. And it's available online. You can get it from me. You can get it on your own. You don't need my permission. Because you already have Gohonzon. You just need a tool to help you express it. I don't control that. You control that. There are two kinds of wisdom, correct and perverse. No matter how wise a person may appear, if his assertions are wrapped or warped, you should not listen to him. Nor should you follow priests merely because they are venerable or of high rank, right? Authoritarian. But if a person has the wisdom to know the true meaning of the Lotus Sutra, no matter how lowly he may appear, pay respect to him and make offerings to him as though he were the living, thus come one. That's a lot to live up to. Because that's you and I. We need to have that conviction in one another, in ourselves, to invoke Buddha. Buddha, your Buddha, my Buddha, not somebody else's. Thus it is written in the sutra. This is why the great teacher Dengyo says that the men and women who believe in this sutra, even if they lack knowledge or violate the precepts, should be seated above monks who observe all 250 precepts of the Hinayana teachings, and never be seated in a humble position. And this is all the more true of the priests of the Mahayana Sutra, of this Mahayana Sutra, the Lotus Sutra. So already, because you are sincerely chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo and reciting the 2 chapters out of the Lotus Sutra, your Buddhahood, your Bodhisattva way, is far superior to those monks in other countries who are living in solitude and practicing the Hinayana and Tripitaka teachings all their lives. They don't amount to your Gangyo. That's how amazing this practice is. It's so easy for us to take it for granted, but it is immense. The monk Ryokan of Gokuraku-ji Temple is thought to be I have been getting so many robocalls. It is insane. Sorry about that. The priest Ryokan of Gokuraku-ji Temple is thought to be a living thus come one. But the men and women who believe in the Lotus Sutra should be seated high above him. It seems extraordinary that this Ryokan, who observes the 250 precepts, should become angry and glare at me, Nichiren, whenever he sees me. It is like the case of a generally even-tempered person who, when drunk, reveals his evil tendencies, his evil side, and causes trouble. Prior to the preaching of the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha taught that those who gave alms to Mahakasyapa, Shariputra, Madhyagalana, and Subhuti would fall into the three evil paths. He said that the minds of these voice hearers were inferior to those of dogs or foxes. These four great voice hearers adamantly upheld the 250 precepts, and their observance of the 3,000 rules of conduct was as perfect as the full moon on the 15th night. Nevertheless, until they embraced the Lotus Sutra, they were bitterly criticized by the Buddha. How much more would this be so in the case of the priests and monks of today, who are inferior to them? So, a lot of harsh words for those politicians of his day, misleading people incorrectly and practicing not really Buddhism, but some other form of idolatry, their own avarice, their own ego. All right, that's it for this part. Nichiren is making some pretty strong points, and he's making them over and over and over again because he wants to make a strong impression on Niike, and certainly a strong impression on you and I, as to getting our head straight about our attitude and intent whenever we recite Gongyo, chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, use this mandala, universal mandala, for all living beings. Shakyamuni's original goal. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Amazing, amazing support from you guys. Thank you. Any way you choose to do that. And I'll see you in, I guess the next one's part 3. So I'll see you then. Take care of your health. Be kind. Bye for now. Bye. Hey, thank you for being here. Did you know there's a third way you can help support this channel? And it won't cost you a cent. Yep. If you are not able to be a patron on Patreon, or use the PayPal me at .com at Sifu Sylvain, because you don't have the financial fortune to help support this channel right now, you, as I say, always support this channel by watching, but you can also help us grow so that maybe one day we can get over 10,000 subscribers and YouTube will grace us with monetization. It's not a lot, but if you can make sure you're subscribed and share a video, like a simple one, just go into the search criteria and type monk, and you'll have a video that'll come up that's been up for years about what is a monk. You know, it's called monk, who, how, where, something like that. That might be a great introduction to somebody who doesn't understand what a monk is to begin with. It's a tool. Use this channel as a tool to help you with your bodhisattva practice, and share a video to somebody who you think, oh, I know somebody who'll benefit from watching this. And in that way, you can help us grow. And that's a really good way to help your practice along as well. So, just wanted to drop that in on you, in case that's something that you might find useful. Take care of yourself again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.